and welcome back to my channel. I am back on my lovely desk where I can basically just sit and talk. I'm not sure how people do daily vlogs because it just requires so much time. You basically have to go outside, hit the record button, go back inside, and then walk out pretending as if it was just all seamless and natural. If you're new to this channel, my name is Frank. I took a road trip from Toronto, Ontario, and drove all the way to where I am right now in Calgary, Alberta. And if you're wondering, the car didn't break down, I didn't get into any accident, I didn't hit any livestock, no chicken, no cows, no moose, no deer. I made it in one piece. With that in mind, it seems like a lot of people who watch my channel have somewhat of an interest to move to Calgary, and for a lot of good reasons. But I am sure, including myself, struggled to figure out how exactly to get here when you have a vehicle and you have a bunch of crap laying in your home that you want to bring over. So then you make the decision to drive here, but you fear the potential of getting into some sort of accident along the way. So with that in mind, for this week's video, I'm gonna be sharing how to road trip across Canada safely, and more specifically from Toronto to Calgary. I'll be going through my 5 personal road trip tips that I've learned along the way and that I feel you should consider when doing long distance driving. There's actually 2 things that I want you guys to do this time, and it is not only just smashing the like button, but also
smashing the subscribe button.
Let's jump right into the video, starting off with early travel. The first thing that you may want to consider when driving far distances is waking up and driving early in the morning. Not so early to the point where it's still dark outside, but just before sun rises. And the reason being is that you basically don't want to be in a situation where you're driving late at night and you're rushing at 9 p.m. to your hotel room. I personally still remember driving through Ontario and remembering points during the drive and recognizing that had I drove during night, it would be quite dangerous if you tie that into with any sort of thunderstorm or rain. And if you want a great analogy, just think of it like a horror film where your car breaks down in the side of the highway late at night, there's 2 of you, and then inevitably one of you goes,
I'll go looking for some help.
And then they leave, and then you know realistically they never actually come back, and then next thing you know, Jeepers Creepers shows up to the front of your window. Okay, maybe that might not happen, but according to this article on Medium that states what time do most accidents happen during the day, states that most accidents occur between the time hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Now, I understand that the article probably meant city driving, but it's something to consider at least. And if you still don't believe me, just think of it on a financial standpoint where you get to arrive to your hotel a lot sooner, so you get to arrive there upon check-in time, you get to maximize your day, go to the hotel, go to the gym, versus arriving there at 11 p.m. and only stealing their morning breakfast. So wake up early, drive early, get there early, and that's how I made it safe for me. The second piece of advice that I would recommend and suggest is taking frequent breaks. Especially during long hours of driving, there's only so much Backstreet Boy music that you can listen to before you start feeling sluggish and tired. One advantage that I had when I made my travels over here was that I had my sister tagging along. So we would typically swap drivers every 3 or 4 hours. And I'm telling you firsthand that there's a lot of times where I felt like I could push myself further and drive an hour or so, but oftentimes it was when I took my seat on the passenger spot that I recognized that okay, maybe I should have took a break a lot sooner. But if you're traveling alone, just make sure you take frequent breaks. Go to Tim Hortons, grab yourself an ice cap, grab a donut, and relax for a bit. And to make things feel a lot safer was that we came to terms to only drive about 7 to 9 hours a day before stopping in a small town and resting for the rest of the evening. And I know there's probably at least one person watching that's probably thinking,
but Frank, I'm so used to driving long distances. 7 to 9 hours, that's all you can do. Ha ha ha. I can actually drive 15 to 20 hours.
And to that, I just like to say, good for you. But you gotta remember, it's a marathon. So what I did was, instead of looking at it as a massive scale, I like to chunk it up and stopping between every small city that was about 8 hours or so away from my current spot. All right, so transitioning now to the next piece, and that is planning your route in advance. And make sure you understand what small town or city that you're trying to get to at a certain point during the day, understand what time you need to leave the house, what time you need to get there by, and taking into consideration all the breaks. For example, I understood when I traveled from Toronto to my first destination, which was Sault St Marie, that on the GPS, it would just state that it was 7 hours. But factoring in pee breaks, food, it took us closer between 8 to 9 hours. All I used was GPS to get to my destination. And one thing that I wanted to share was that oftentimes along the way, the GPS would sometimes recommend a shorter route. So in essence, the GPS would recommend going off from the Trans-Canada Highway and going on a smaller highway. I typically found it not being worth it because it'll take you to another highway that was now two-way traffic or road conditions that are just unpaved. And then a lot of times I found myself just wishing that I just stayed on the Trans-Canada, the main highway, instead of taking the off route that would save me 10 minutes. The fourth road trip tip that I want to share was doing a vehicle checkup prior to leaving. Now I'm actually leasing my car, so the first thing that came to my mind was,
I'm leasing it, I don't own it, I return it in a couple years, I'm good to go.
But one thing that I need to do and that what everyone should do before doing a road trip is doing an oil change prior, because I recognize the distance from Toronto to Calgary was 3,500 kilometers. In terms of fueling your vehicle, now looking back, I recognize that I probably should have filled my tank up sooner rather than waiting for my dashboard to hit that light and thinking, oh crap. If you wait till the very end, then you're stuck with whatever gas station that's in the middle of nowhere, and then they obviously understand that they can just charge you anything because at that point you're just super desperate to fill up your tank. Especially driving through Ontario, I felt like there was a lot more rural areas. So I even seen signs where it was literally showed that there will be no gas pump for the next 100 kilometers. The point being here is make sure you have your vehicle inspected, checked out, oil changed, gassed up, wash the fuel filled up before leaving, and you should make it here alive. The last advice that I want to share was bringing along sufficient food along with plenty of water. And I know you may be thinking that McDonald's or Taco Bell is scattered across along the way, but yeah, I learned it the hard way because it's not true. One, it doesn't show up as often as you may think, and secondly, it's probably not for your best interest to down 2 Big Macs and use it as your body fuel on a road trip. What you should do instead is bring along food items that are road trip friendly. Food items that doesn't get your hand too dirty, and make sure you bring plenty of water. Another piece of advice that really helped me when I was doing my travels was that I made sure all the food items and water were close to the front of the vehicle. So that way it's just a lot easier, a lot more accessible versus going through the back and digging around all the crap that you have. So the takeaway here is bring food item that doesn't get too messy, bring lots of water, stay hydrated, and you'll make it to your destination. So to wrap things off, I just want to say my overall experience traveling from Toronto to Calgary was quite positive. And to be honest, I never thought I'd actually make that far of a road trip. I even thought anywhere between Winnipeg and Toronto is too far, let alone driving from Toronto all the way to Calgary. I have to admit though that one of the reasons that made this really feasible for me personally was that I was able to stop in my hometown in Winnipeg, where I rested for about a week before driving out from Winnipeg over to Calgary. But if you don't have the time or the luxury of staying into a city for a week, then my advice is to pace yourself. You're not racing anyone, and recognize that you're traveling across the second largest country in the world. Your main objective is literally just to get there safely and limit the potential of an accident happening. And lastly, just enjoy the road trip, because now looking back, I saw some of the nicest scenery that I would only see on a desktop in front of my computer that I was seeing with my own 2 eyes, so that was pretty wicked. So with that being said, that is my take on how to road trip across Canada from Toronto to Calgary safely. If anyone in the future is planning on doing a road trip across Canada for fun or to actually move, I wish you all the best, and I will see you all in my next video.